Now to the United Kingdom, where voters are due to deliver a verdict on 14 years of government by the centre-right Conservative Party. All polls point to deep dissatisfaction with the current government under Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and predict a strong win for Keir Starmer's centre-left Labour Party in tomorrow's parliamentary elections. DW's Charlotte Chelsom-Pill reports.
To form a new government
will be the mission of the government I lead.
5 Prime Ministers, 14 years of Conservative government. Now the UK appears to be heading for change, with Sir Keir Starmer's centre-left Labour Party on course for a historic victory.
All we ask now, humbly, is the opportunity to change our country and put it back in the service of working people.
Just 5 years ago, under Boris Johnson, the Conservative Party were unbeatable. But a series of scandals and criticism over its handling of COVID and the economy have seen its popularity plummet. Rishi Sunak's election campaign, plagued by missteps, hasn't helped, starting with this.
Now is the moment for Britain to choose its future.
The Prime Minister calling the election in the pouring rain.
Or risk going back to square one with no plan and no certainty.
Sunak's party is now 20 points behind Starmer's Labour Party. For its part, Labour's fighting to prove it has a credible plan and can be trusted with the economy. And few are excited by its leader.
Take a look at the polls and you will see a country that's hungry for change. But speak to people here on the streets and you'll find the mood's actually pretty bleak. Trust in politics is low and dissatisfaction running high, leaving many here unconvinced that change will come.
I don't think anyone's got any real faith that whichever party comes in next is going to make a massive impact.
It's a matter of choosing the best amongst a bad bunch. I'm afraid politics in the UK has been pretty badly served ever since we made the bad decision for Brexit.
I think the Conservative Party have done a lot of things wrong, and I don't think they're going to. I don't think a lot of people are going to forgive them.
The world is watching this election, but foreign policy is not at the centre of the fight.
Welcome, my friends.
With little difference between the main parties on issues like Ukraine. Polls show the economy, migration and healthcare are people's top concerns. The UK is facing a cost of living crisis. Migration figures have hit record highs in recent years, and the health service is struggling under the pressure of massive waiting lists. When the election results come in, people will also be watching Nigel Farage,
good morning, everybody.
The architect of Brexit, and his anti-immigration Reform UK party. They've seen a surge in support, which could shape the future of Britain's political landscape.
The big question is whether they take a lot of votes off the Conservatives to the point where Britain's oldest political party, the Conservatives, is shrunk down to not even being the main opposition.
Whoever forms the next government faces a long list of difficult challenges, not least restoring the faith of a weary public.
And after 14 years of Conservative government, Thursday's vote is expected to deliver a landslide victory to the centre-left opposition Labour Party. Even Prime Minister Rishi Sunak seems resigned to the idea of losing power. Visiting a school in the final day of the campaign, he urged voters to prevent what he called a Labour supermajority, as poll after poll predicts one of the biggest election landslides in modern British history.
Yeah, I'm working very hard until the last minute of this campaign for every vote, and you've been out with me across the country seeing that, and yesterday was a long day because I really believe lots of people have not made up their mind, and that's why I'm keen to talk to as many people as possible before the polls close tomorrow to make sure everyone understands that choice ahead of them. And it's a very simple choice. If you want your taxes cut, your pension protected, our border secure, and you want to prevent that Labour supermajority, then vote Conservative. Your vote will make a difference. Lots of people want to say this is a foregone conclusion. Analysis shows that's not true. Your vote can make a difference to preventing that majority and having your taxes cut and your pension protected. So get out there and vote Conservative.
Well, Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer has been crisscrossing Britain as he wrapped up his campaign. He urged voters in Scotland to choose a new government.
This election is all about change. The chance to turn the page and start to rebuild. That is what tomorrow is all about. It's a stark choice. We've had 14 years of chaos, of division and failure in Westminster.
Well, despite Labour's lead in the polls, polls have also found that public trust in politics is low and dissatisfaction high. In one survey, just 10% of people said they trust cabinet ministers to tell the truth. That's left people wondering whether voting will change anything.
I don't think anyone's got any real faith that whichever party comes in next is going to make a massive impact.
It's a matter of choosing the best amongst a bad bunch. I'm afraid politics in the UK has been pretty badly served ever since we made the bad decision for Brexit.
I think the Conservative Party have done a lot of things wrong, and I don't think they're going to... I don't think a lot of people are going to...
Andrew Blick is Professor of Politics and Contemporary History at King's College London. He also heads its Political Economy Department and joins us from London. Welcome to DW. Why is this election expected to be such a landslide for the centre-left Labour Party, who are currently in opposition?
Well, simply because Labour are going to be, by the look of it, amassing the number of votes they need in the right seats. That's the way it works under our system. We don't have a proportional system. We have what's called a first past the post system. And if you can get the right seats in the right places, the right votes in the right places, you can win big. And that looks like what's going to happen tomorrow.
Britain's last general election in 2019 returned a Conservative government with a significant majority led by Boris Johnson. What has happened to turn that into this apparent disaster?
Well, that's the important question, because it's not only the scale of the victory which the projections suggest Labour is going to achieve, but the scale of the turnaround from when they were in 2019. I think the answer to a lot of this is the unpopularity of the Conservative Party more than the popularity of Labour. And they've achieved this unpopularity by a series of political disasters, the ongoing scandals of the Boris Johnson government that eventually led to him being removed by his own side, then the very short-lived Liz Truss premiership during 2022, destroyed by the budget introduced by our own Chancellor Exchequer, Kwasi Kwarteng, and then followed by that Rishi Sunak failing really ever to deal with the problems that he's inherited, and then in many ways making things worse, not least by the way in which he's handled this election campaign. Coupled with that, we've got severe economic problems in the country. We've had cost of living crisis, energy crisis, and I think the highest tax burden since the Second World War. So there's a variety of political and economic factors going on that between them conspired to just destroy the popularity of the Conservative Party and their government.
OK, so this is about an unpopular Conservative Party rather than a particularly popular Labour Party. What is Labour promising to do in government? What are their priorities?
Well, Labour are deliberately, as they would put it, under-promising with the hope of over-delivering. But they are talking about achieving growth. They are talking about some areas of political reform, such as devolution, such as efforts to eliminate corruption. But on the other hand, a lot of what they're doing is talking about what they're ruling out. For instance, they've been very clear under the Starmer leadership to completely rule out ever rejoining the European Union, but not only to rule that out, but to rule out ever rejoining the single market, were that even on offer, or indeed the customs union, or ever returning to freedom of movement. So a lot of it is about things they precluded, but they do have some offers, including in areas such as energy, where they're proposing to create a kind of nationally owned energy company, Great British Energy. So they have some offers in there, but it's also about what they're not going to do. And the other thing they've tried to be clear on is they're not going to be a tax-raising party.
It's interesting to look at the predicted turnaround in voting and the predicted fortunes of the Conservative Party, which has ruled for 14 years. This is a party that's internationally had a reputation as just an election-winning machine. Now it looks like it's going to not just be electorally humbled, but potentially subject to a takeover. Tell us about Nigel Farage and his attempts to destroy or even take over a party whose worldview isn't a million miles away from his own.
Farage is a very influential figure in British politics, and he's achieved that influence without ever having been elected to the UK Parliament. He's been in the European Parliament, didn't turn up much, but he was a member, never been in the UK Parliament. Now that might be about to change, but more importantly, he's managed for the third time really to lead a party that's had a huge impact. And one of their big impacts has been to pressurise the Conservative Party from the right, to threaten them electorally without necessarily ever winning anything, but to pressure them into moving into the policy areas that Farage identifies as important. Now, certainly it could be the case that post the general election, which is coming on Thursday, the Conservatives will have had such a disaster inflicted on them, and possibly Farage might find himself in Parliament as MP for Clacton. We will see that there will be some kind of battle for control of the Conservative Party, and perhaps playing into that battle will be the potential of a takeover by a group on what you might call the populist right of the Conservative Party, which also might reach out or be working with Farage and whatever he's got around him. So yes, there will be various bids to take over the Conservative Party, some of which might even involve reaching out to and incorporating Farage. But that will partly depend on what happens to him and what happens, just how bad it is to the Conservatives tomorrow night.
So many of the people that we heard in our report are disillusioned with the state of British politics. Is a different party running things after 14 years likely to change that?
A different party, if it comes to power, which it looks like it will be inheriting all the problems that have been arguably created by the Conservatives, or at least been faced by the Conservatives. None of those problems go away the day after a general election, and it doesn't matter how large your majority is. They will get what we call a honeymoon period, when they're given a bit more of a chance, a bit more optimism amongst the public, perhaps, and they perhaps have the opportunity for a while to blame problems on the previous government. But that will not last forever. It never does. And back to our previous discussion, all the evidence suggests that this is more a case of a hugely unpopular government losing a general election, as opposed to a hugely popular opposition winning a general election, as was the case perhaps in 1997 when Labour were led by Tony Blair. Now, the fact that they're not hugely popular may mean that they become very unpopular very quickly, or it could, on the other hand, work in their favour. And this is, I think, what Starmer is attempting to pull off, is a dampening down of expectations, so that when things are achieved, it is actually noticed and liked by the public. But certainly none of these problems are going to go away. And in some areas, arguably, particularly with respect to the EU, Starmer may have boxed himself in a bit with the pledges he's made so before the election that makes it difficult for him to achieve progress.
OK, thank you for talking us through that so clearly. Professor Andrew Blick from King's College London, thank you so much.